So for the first thing we need to do is construct our query, and this is just going to be in plain string format. So I'm going to create a variable called insert, and this is just going to be equal to a string value. Notice I'm using double quotation marks. This is just going to be easier than using singles, because I can just pop the variables, reference these variables here, guestbook name, email and message, straight into my query. So the query is as follows. If you've looked at queries before, you understand. If you've used other databases, this is going to be quite similar. So I'm going to say insert into the database name we need to, the table name, sorry, we need to give, and the table name is entries. So insert into entries, values, and then in brackets we need to specify each value. Now we obviously know that we've already got 5 values to input. This is the ID, which we don't actually need to specify a value because it's automatically increments. We've then got timestamp, name, email, message, so we've got 5 in total. So if we go ahead, I like to just do this so I know what I'm doing and I can follow it along easily. I've created a value here, comma separated by a value here, and so on, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like I said, ID is here, which we don't need to do anything with. We could put 1 or 2 or 3, but absolutely no point. This will automatically increment if you just enter nothing in. The next is the timestamp. So obviously up here we created this time thing here, which this time variable, which contains the current Unix timestamp. Let's go ahead and type time in there. That's inserted that into our database, well, when we run that query anyway. The next is the name, so that's guestbook name. Then we've got guestbook email, and then we've got guestbook message. So hopefully now you understand that each value here corresponds to the position in our table. So when we run this query, what it'll do is it will pick up on this timestamp, it'll increment the value, it'll also enter the name, the email address, and the message that was inserted through our form. So now what we can do is create an if statement to actually run this query and check it's worked at the same time. So I'm going to say if insert equals MySQL query. So we're using this MySQL query function inside of the if statement. We're running the query at the same time as checking it, and insert. So we're overwriting this variable with the value, or the we're calling this the result of this function insert. So we're referencing the variables twice. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So if insert equals MySQL query insert, we could just have it like this actually. That would make things a lot more simpler. But if you wanted to use this query later on, you would have to give it a variable name like that with the correct spelling. So for now then I'll just keep it as if MySQL query insert, then we have a success. Otherwise we have an error. So else, error goes here. So if the query is successful, do something, otherwise do something else. So we need to now say error, or errors, sorry, this is again the array, because remember down here we're checking this array. So errors equals something went wrong, please try again soon, or something like that. Entirely up to you. So something went wrong, please try again soon. That looks better. Okay, so if the query is a success, we need to we could either give a confirmation message to the user, or we could do something else. So it doesn't really matter. All I really want to do is forward the user back to the same page that we're already on, and I'm going to do that using the header function. And the reason we do this is simple. If we were to say insert this data, remember the query's already run. So at this point, this query is already being run. If the query is successful, I'm going to use the header function, and the location is going to be, oh sorry, that needs to go in there, so we need to say location, and then we're going to append on, remember the space in there, we're going to append on the current script, so PHP self. The reason that we do this is the query has been inserted, we then redirect the user back to the same page that this guestbook exists on, because if we were to not, we could just keep pressing F5 and the data would be resubmitted again and again and again. So for spam purposes, we use this to redirect the user back again. So let's just go ahead and test this. This should all work. If for some reason it doesn't work, we can come back and fix it. So as it stands, we've got no data inside of our table. As you can see here, returned an empty result set. Let's go ahead and just click back on there. Okay, so name, Alex, email, alex@phpacademy.org. We've already sorted out the validation, so I'm not going to go through that. And I'm going to say, love what you've done with the site. So click on post. Okay, so the data's gone. We haven't got any confirmation message, but we've been resubmitted or retaken back to this guestbook.php page. Let me just press F5. You can see that I'm not being prompted by my browser to resubmit any information. Therefore, we're back to our guestbook.php, and this is the point of header. If you are interested in this, try and just comment that out and see what happens, and try and press F5 after you've submitted everything, and you'll see the danger in doing this. Now let's go back to browse, and we can hopefully see, yep, that our data has been inserted. So now we can see that we've got an ID of 1, even though back here we specified nothing in there. That's automatically incremented for us. We've got the current timestamp, we've got the name, email and message. Okay, so now that we've successfully done that, everything's working, we now need to think about what we want to do with displaying it to our users, or rather displaying the current entries to our users. So displaying the data to our users is going to happen down here where I commented earlier. So you can see that we've created a substantial amount of code to check things and check that our queries performed correctly, and then inserted everything, refreshed the page. But we're not actually displaying any of the entries. Now we've already got an entry in our database that we can test this with. So now what we can do is go ahead, I'm just going to get rid of this comment, and I'm going to essentially now, regardless of what happens on the page, I'm going to display the data to the user. If they land on guestbook.php, we're going to display the data from the database, the entries from the database. If we submit a value, we're going to submit the value, and then we're going to go back and display the data. So this block here, remember, only runs all in here if we have actually submitted the form. Otherwise, we're outside of this. Let's just tidy this up there. Otherwise, outside of this, we are actually displaying the data regardless. So let's go ahead and do this then.